My financially abusive father, who kept my mother in literal poverty for decades, is now trying to force me to route my new job's salary into his bank account, and I am trapped in a house that feels like a French existentialist nightmare. Honestly, I do not even know why I am typing this right now. I am sitting in my car in the driveway in the freezing rain, just staring at the front door of my house, completely dreading walking inside. I mean, my hands are literally shaking against the steering wheel. I am just so unbelievably exhausted by my own life. I need to get this all out somewhere before I lose my actual mind, because if I keep it bottled up for one more second, I am going to scream until my lungs give out. My family is a complete mess. There are 5 of us. My dad, Marcus, my mom, Sylvia, me, and my 2 younger sisters, Lily and Chloe. I am 22, and ever since I was a little kid, I have watched my father run our household like a hostile corporate takeover. It is all about control. Specifically, financial control. My mom used to be an incredibly talented baker. She did not just make cookies, she made these massive, elaborate, 3-tier custom wedding cakes with hand-painted fondant flowers. She would spend 40 hours a week standing in our cramped kitchen, covered in powdered sugar, just working her fingers to the bone so we could afford groceries. But here is the sick part. She never saw a single penny of her own labor. Marcus is completely obsessed with being the sole gatekeeper of our survival. He set up the digital payment application on his phone. Whenever my mom finished a cake and the client came to pick it up, they would scan a barcode that sent the payment directly into Marcus's personal digital wallet. My mom did not even have a smartphone. She had this ancient, cracked flip phone with no data plan, and she certainly was not allowed to have her own checking account. Every time she needed to buy flour or butter for the business, or milk and bread for us, she had to go to him and beg. Yes, he would usually pay for the basic groceries when asked. He liked playing the generous provider in those moments. But the real problem, the terrifying problem, was when they had a fight. And they fought a lot. Whenever Marcus got mad, he would just shut off the money. He would take the only debit card we had, get in his truck, and vanish for 2 or 3 days. I mean, he would literally leave us to starve. My sisters and I would be digging through the back of the pantry, splitting expired cans of black beans, or eating stale crackers. My mom would be sitting at the kitchen table, just sobbing, holding maybe 3 or 4 crumpled dollar bills in her apron pocket. That was her entire net worth, $3. After baking hundreds of luxury cakes for rich people in our town, she had absolutely nothing. We went hungry for days, just because Marcus felt like punishing us. In my community college literature class last year, we had to read this play by Jean-Paul Sartre called No Exit. It is this famous existentialist story, where 3 dead people are locked in a fancy drawing room together for eternity. There are no torturers, no fire and brimstone, just a valet who locks the door from the outside, and the 3 of them driving each other completely insane. Sartre wrote that hell is other people. Honestly, that play ruined me because I realized I was already living in it. Our house is that drawing room. Marcus is the guy who locks the door, controls the thermostat, controls the oxygen, controls the food. Hell is not some fiery pit. Hell is living with a man who weaponizes your next meal to make sure you never forget he is the one in charge. Now, I am finally trying to break out of the drawing room. I got a job. It is nothing glamorous, just a data entry position at the Regional Agricultural Cooperative office downtown. I am going to be typing fertilizer inventory numbers into a spreadsheet for 8 hours a day. It pays about $18,000 a year. It is practically minimum wage, but I do not care. It is mine. Or, at least, it is supposed to be mine. Human Resources sent me the onboarding packet yesterday. They strictly require a direct deposit routing number to process payroll. I was prepared for this. I have a secret checking account that I opened the morning I turned 18. I walked into the local credit union, deposited $20 I got for my birthday, and opted out of all paper mail so nothing would ever arrive at our house. I was so excited to finally use it. I printed out the Human Resources forms at the library and brought them home to fill out. But I am stupid. I was sloppy. I left the forms on the kitchen island while I went to the bathroom, and Marcus found them. The argument that followed was just a nightmare. He stood there holding my paperwork, not even looking angry, just looking incredibly smug. He told me that since I live under his roof, My salary needs to be routed into his primary bank account. He said it was for the good of the household. I tried to explain to him that human resources does not work like that companies cannot just deposit an employee's paycheck into a random third-party account due to tax regulations. He just laughed in my face. He asked what kind of stupid rules a fertilizer warehouse could possibly have, and told me to just write his account number on the line and tell them it is a joint account. It just gets worse the more I try to reason with him. I told him I have to work a whole month, 40 hours a week, just to earn a fraction of what he thinks is acceptable money. Marcus is a freelance heavy machinery liquidator. He buys broken-down tractors, flips them, and takes a massive commission. He looked at me, completely dead in the eyes, and said he could earn my entire monthly salary in a single afternoon. He completely belittled my job, my effort, my whole existence. But his commissions take months to clear. His unpredictable income is the reason my sister Lily got locked out of her college student portal. Her tuition was 90 days past due because Marcus was waiting on a tractor sale to finalize. We are constantly on the edge of ruin, waiting for his big paydays, while he refuses to let anyone else contribute independently. He looked at me and said if I do not give them his account number, I can just quit before I start. I can just sit at home. He told me I have nowhere to escape to. I just want to leave this house so badly, but I do not know how. I cannot get an apartment without my job money, and I cannot get my job money if he hijacks my direct deposit. I feel like I am suffocating. I am completely trapped. I finally turned the engine off. The windshield wipers stopped mid-swipe, leaving a smear of cold rain right in my line of sight. I sat there for another 10 minutes, just listening to the rain hit the metal roof of my beat-up sedan. Honestly, I debated just putting the car in reverse and driving until the gas tank was empty, which would probably be about 40 miles given the broken fuel gauge. But I did not. I never do. I just grabbed my cheap canvas backpack, zipped up my jacket, and made a run for the front porch. The porch light has been burnt out since last November. Marcus refuses to buy a new bulb because he says we leave it on during the daytime and waste electricity. So, I fumbled with my keys in the pitch black, my hands still shaking from the cold and the adrenaline of just existing in this family. When I finally pushed the front door open, the blast of hot air from the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system hit me in the face. He keeps the house at 78 degrees in the winter. It is stifling. It smells like old cooking grease and tension. I walked into the living room, and of course, there he was. Marcus was stretched out on the brown synthetic leather recliner, watching a documentary about deep-sea fishing on the television. The volume was up so loud it vibrated the floorboards. He did not even look away from the screen when I walked in. "Took you long enough," he said, his voice flat. "Were you just sitting in the driveway running the heater? Wasting my gasoline?" I did not even have the energy to argue. "The car was off, Dad," I said. "I was just checking my email on my phone. Better not be sending those human resources forms to that cooperative place without my account routing number on them," he muttered, finally turning his head to look at me. "I am checking the mail every day. You try to open a new account, they will send a debit card here, and I will intercept it. Do not play games with me, kid. We are a family. We pool our resources. I mean, pool our resources. Are you kidding me? He means he hoards our resources while we beg for scraps." I just nodded because if I opened my mouth, I was going to scream. "I have not sent anything yet," I told him. I walked past him and went into the kitchen. My mom, Sylvia, was standing at the sink scrubbing a massive aluminum mixing bowl. She looked so small, her shoulders were hunched, and her hair was falling out of this messy bun she always wears. She was wearing a faded grey sweatshirt that was frayed at the cuffs. She has not bought a new piece of clothing for herself in maybe 10 years. "Hey, Mom," I said quietly. She jumped a little, dropping the sponge into the soapy water. "Oh, hi honey. I did not hear you come in over the television. Are you hungry? We have some leftover chicken and rice in the refrigerator." "I am okay," I lied. My stomach was actually cramping from hunger, but eating food in this house always feels like taking a loan out from a loan shark. You always pay for it later. Chloe and Lily were sitting at the kitchen island, surrounded by scattered papers and textbooks. Chloe is 16, and Lily is 19 and doing her first year at the local community college. They both looked up at me with these hollow, tired expressions. They heard the fight earlier. In this house, you cannot hide a fight. The walls are practically made of paper. Did you figure out what you are going to do about the job? Lily whispered, looking nervously toward the living room hallway to make sure Marcus was not listening. I do not know yet, I whispered back, pulling out a stool and sitting down. I have to hand in the direct deposit form by Friday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or they delay my first paycheck by a whole month. If I delay it, he is going to know I am stalling. If I give him his way, I am stuck forever. This is what Sata was talking about. In No Exit, the characters eventually realize they do not need an actual torturer with a pitchfork to make them suffer. The people you are trapped with do all the work. They pick at your insecurities, they monitor your behavior, they tear you down until you are just policing yourself. We are the three people in that drawing room. My mom, my sisters, and me. We just sit here, quietly scrubbing bowls and doing homework, terrified to make a loud noise, terrified to demand anything for ourselves, while the valet, Marcus, sits in the recliner watching deep-sea fishing. We have internalized the prison. I looked at my mom's hands. They were raw and red from the hot water. She used to have such steady hands when she piped the icing on those wedding cakes. Now they just tremble. I cannot let that happen to me. I refuse to be 50 years old, standing at a sink, with exactly $3 to my name, terrified that my husband is going to take the car keys and starve my children for a weekend because I bought the wrong brand of laundry detergent. I will figure something out, I told my sisters, trying to sound a lot more confident than I felt. I stood up and headed down the narrow hallway to the bedroom I share with Chloe. I shut the door, locked it, and threw my backpack on my mattress. The lock does not actually work very well. If you jiggle the handle hard enough, it pops right open, which Marcus loves to do to prove a point about privacy not existing under his roof, but it gave me at least a mental barrier. I unzipped my bag and pulled out the manila envelope Human Resources had given me. I stared at the direct deposit authorization form. It asked for a bank name, a 9-digit routing number, and an account number. There has to be a loophole. There is always a loophole in a bureaucracy, right? I just have to find it. I cannot use my secret credit union account, because Marcus was right. If they mail a paper statement, or a welcome packet, or a tax form at the end of the year, it will come to this address. He monitors the mailbox like a hawk. He literally waits for the mail carrier every single afternoon at 2 o'clock. If he sees a piece of mail from a bank with my name on it, he will explode. He will probably kick me out on the street. Or worse, he will take his truck and leave my mom and sisters with no grocery money for a week just to punish me. So, I cannot use the secret account, but I absolutely refuse to write down his account number. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled my laptop out. I opened an incognito browser window. I typed in a search for alternative banking options for unbanked workers. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I felt like a criminal. I am 22 years old, trying to figure out how to keep my own $18,000 salary from a minimum wage data entry job, and I feel like I am planning a bank heist. The laptop screen was so bright it hurt my eyes. The internet connection is terrible in my room, because the wireless router is all the way on the other side of the house, next to Marcus's recliner, naturally. It took 3 minutes just to load a basic personal finance forum. I scrolled through threads of people talking about prepaid debit cards, mobile cash applications, and international wire transfers. None of it made sense for a regional agricultural cooperative's payroll department. They need a standard, domestic banking institution. I looked around my room. It is suffocatingly small. There are 2 twin beds crammed in here, with about 2 feet of walking space between them. The closet doors are broken and permanently off their tracks. The paint on the walls is this depressing shade of beige that makes everything look dirty even when it is clean. This room is not a sanctuary, it is just a holding cell. I slammed the laptop shut. I rubbed my temples. I have a headache that starts at the base of my neck and wraps all the way around behind my eyes. I have to go to work tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. It is my first official day after the orientation. I am going to have to walk into that human resources office, look the payroll manager in the eyes, and hand her a piece of paper that will determine the rest of my life. I just lay back on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of the television down the hall, wondering if there was any way out of this drawing room that did not involve burning the whole house down. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I say woke up, but I never really fell asleep in the first place. I just sort of vibrated with anxiety on my mattress for 7 hours. Every time the refrigerator compressor kicked on in the kitchen, I flinched, thinking it was Marcus getting up to start yelling at somebody. I rolled out of bed, careful not to wake Chloe, who was curled up under a thin fleece blanket on the other side of the room. I put on my only professional outfit, which is just a pair of black slacks I bought at a local thrift store, and a stiff beige button-down shirt. I looked like a severely depressed substitute teacher, but it was the best I could do. I sneaked into the kitchen to make a cup of instant coffee. The house was absolutely freezing because Marcus programs the central heating, ventilation, and air conditioning unit to drop to 55 degrees overnight to save on the utility bill. I stood by the microwave, waiting for the water to boil, just rubbing my arms aggressively to stay warm. That is when I remembered another part of that SATA book from my literature class. It is this core concept called bad faith. Basically, SATA says that bad faith is when you lie to yourself to avoid the terrifying reality that you are actually completely free. You convince yourself that you have absolutely no choices, that you are just a helpless victim of your circumstances, acting like an inanimate object instead of a living human being. He uses the example of a waiter pretending to just be a waiter, moving mechanically, instead of a man who actively chooses to wait tables. I realized standing there in the cold kitchen that I was doing exactly that. I was living entirely in bad faith. I kept telling myself, oh, I am trapped, I have no options, my father holds all the cards. But by doing that, I was actively choosing to stay in the drawing room. I was choosing to hand over my $18,000 a year just to avoid the terror of standing up to him. The microwave beeped. I grabbed my ceramic mug, grabbed my car keys, and slipped out the front door before the sun even came up. I got to the Regional Agricultural Cooperative building at 7 o'clock in the morning. It is this incredibly ugly, grey cinder block building sitting right next to a literal field of soybeans. I sat in my car for 45 minutes, drinking my lukewarm, bitter coffee, practicing what I was going to say in my head over and over again. My stomach was doing aggressive backflips. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I walked through the glass double doors and headed straight down the fluorescent hallway to the Human Resources Department. The payroll manager is this older woman named Brenda. She has a desk absolutely covered in creepy porcelain cat figurines, and she smells heavily like strong peppermint lotion. "Good morning, dear," Brenda said, looking up over her thick reading glasses. "Do you have your direct deposit authorization form for me?" My palms were sweating so much I was practically dissolving the manila envelope in my hands. This was it. The absolute moment of truth. I swallowed hard and stepped right up to her desk. "Actually, Brenda," I said, my voice shaking just a little bit, "I have a massive favor to ask you. And it is kind of weird." Brenda stopped typing on her computer keyboard and gave me this long, searching look. "Okay. What kind of weird?" I just laid it all out. Well, not all of it. I did not tell her about my mother having exactly $3 to her name, or about us eating expired black beans. But I told her that I am living in a financially abusive domestic situation. I told her that if any official banking mail goes to my home residential address, my father will intercept it and legally or illegally confiscate my wages. I asked her, point blank, if I could open a brand new checking account on the internet today, and use the agricultural cooperative's corporate address as my permanent mailing address for the bank. Brenda just stared at me. The silence stretched on for what felt like 10 solid minutes. I thought for sure she was going to call building security, or tell me that it violates some strict corporate compliance policy, or just laugh in my face the way Marcus always does. Honestly, I braced myself to get fired on my very first day. Instead, she sighed heavily, reached into her bottom desk drawer, and pulled out a fresh, blank direct deposit form. My ex-husband used to track the odometer on my car to make sure I only drove to the grocery store and back, Brenda said quietly, not making eye contact with me, just flattening the piece of paper on her desk. He would check the store receipts against the daily mileage. It took me 5 whole years to hide enough cash inside a hollowed-out dictionary to hire a divorce attorney. I just stood there, completely stunned. "We do not have a formal company policy against employees receiving personal mail at the front reception desk," she continued, her tone completely switching back to professional, brisk human resources mode. In fact, the information technology guys get their personal video games shipped here all the time, so they do not get stolen off their residential porches. If you want to go sit in the break room right now, use the company wireless internet, and open an internet bank account using this building's mailing address. I will happily wait here for the routing numbers. I think I actually started crying. Just a few pathetic, embarrassing tears leaking out of the corners of my eyes. Thank you, I choked out. Seriously, thank you so much. Do not thank me, just go get it done before the new hire orientation meeting begins at 9 o'clock, she said, waving me off with her hand. I practically sprinted down the hallway to the break room. I sat down at a sticky plastic table that smelled faintly like old tuna fish and ripped my laptop out of my bag. I found one of those online-only financial institutions that do not have physical branch locations. They do not charge monthly maintenance fees, and they issue a physical debit card entirely through the postal service. I filled out the web application frantically. First name, last name, date of birth, social security number, and then the mailing address box. I typed in the address of the agricultural cooperative, suite number 200. I clicked the submit button. A little spinning loading wheel appeared on the screen. I swear my heart actually stopped beating in my chest while I watched it spin. And then, a bright green checkmark popped up. Account approved. I wrote down the new 9-digit account number and the routing number on Brenda's form with a ballpoint pen. I walked back to her desk and handed the paper over. She checked it over, stamped it with a red ink pad, and placed it inside a locked metal filing cabinet. Your first paycheck will hit this account on the 15th of next month, Brenda said. The physical debit card should arrive at the front desk in 7 to 10 business days. I will tell the front receptionist to hold the envelope behind the counter for you. I walked out of the Human Resources office feeling like I was physically floating. For the first time in 22 years, I had a real secret that belonged entirely to me. I had a legitimate lifeline. I had stepped out of the bad faith. I made a proactive choice. But the sheer relief only lasted for about 2 hours. Because while I was sitting in my cubicle later that morning, typing fertilizer serial numbers into a massive spreadsheet software program, my cheap flip phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out under the desk. It was a text message from Marcus. Checking the mail right now. Where is the human resources paperwork? You better bring it home tonight so I can fill in my account numbers, or do not bother coming back to this house at all. My blood ran completely cold. I had solved the human resources problem, but I still had the Marcus problem. I still had to go back to that drawing room tonight completely empty-handed, and he was going to aggressively demand physical proof that his account was getting my money. I realized I was not actually out of the room yet. The door was still deadbolt from the outside, and the valet was getting angry. Honestly, I stared at that text message on my cheap flip phone for so long that the screen automatically timed out and went completely black. My heart was practically beating out of my throat. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by thousands of rows of fertilizer shipment data on my dual computer monitors, completely paralyzed. I mean, what was I supposed to do? I could not just walk into the house at 6 o'clock in the evening and tell Marcus no. He would physically lock me out. He would throw my mattress on the front lawn. He would cut off the grocery money for my mom and sisters for a month just to make an example out of me. He is a petty, vindictive man who treats his family like poorly performing assets in one of his heavy machinery liquidation deals. Then it hit me. I did not have to tell him no. I just had to lie to him better than he lies to himself. Sartre said that humans are condemned to be free. It means that freedom is not this joyful, uplifting thing. It is actually a terrifying burden, because it means you are entirely responsible for your own actions. You cannot blame the universe, you cannot blame your boss, and you cannot even blame your abuser for the choices you make in response to them. I was condemned to fix this, and I had exactly 4 hours before my shift ended to figure out how to forge a corporate financial document. I minimized my spreadsheet software. I opened a new tab on the internet browser and searched for a standard, generic direct deposit authorization form. I found one that looked vaguely similar to the one Brenda from Human Resources had given me. I downloaded it as a portable document format file and opened it in an editing program. I am not exactly a master hacker or an information technology genius, but I know how to type text over a blank line. My hands were shaking so bad I kept hitting the wrong keys. I typed in Marcus's name, his bank routing number, and his primary checking account number. I had memorized them years ago from staring at his discarded bank statements in the recycling bin, always wondering how much money he actually hoarded while we ate stale crackers. Then, I got creative. I added a massive text box across the bottom of the page. I changed the font to a thick, intimidating block lettering and typed, "Notice, for Federal Agricultural Cooperative Compliance Regulations, all third-party direct deposit requests require a mandatory 30-day escrow verification period. First payroll cycle defaults to paper check issued directly to employee on site." I printed it out on the heavy, expensive cardstock paper in the employee copy room. I even took a red felt tip pen from a supply closet and forged Brenda's signature right over the fake disclaimer to make it look like an official human resources sign-off. It was a complete house of cards. If Marcus actually picked up a telephone and called the Agricultural Cooperative's main office to ask about federal escrow verification periods, the whole thing would instantly collapse. But Marcus is an arrogant narcissist. He thinks he is the smartest guy in every single room he walks into. He would never believe that his 22-year-old daughter, who he has systematically crushed for 2 decades, would have the sheer audacity to forge a federal payroll document. I left work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The drive home was excruciating. Every time I hit a red traffic light, my stomach tied itself into a tighter knot. I felt like I was driving straight back into the drawing room from no exit, except this time, I was actively smuggling contraband past the valet. When I finally pulled into the driveway, his massive, rusted liquidation truck was already parked on the lawn. I grabbed the forged paper out of my backpack, folded it in half, and walked through the front door. He was sitting at the kitchen island, drinking a generic brand light beer, waiting for me. My mom was standing at the stove, aggressively stirring a pot of cheap spaghetti noodles. She did not even turn around when I walked in, but I could see her shoulders totally stiffen. Chloe and Lily were nowhere to be found, probably hiding in their bedroom to avoid the blast radius. "Let me see it," Marcus said. He did not say hello. He did not ask how my first day of data entry went. He just held his hand out, snapping his fingers twice. I walked over and handed him the folded cardstock. I tried to make my face look as defeated and pathetic as possible. I leaned into the bad faith. I played the role of the helpless object perfectly. Marcus unfolded the paper. He read the top half, a smug little smile forming on his face, when he saw his own bank account numbers typed into the boxes. But then his eyes moved to the bottom of the page. The smile completely vanished. His face turned a dark, blotchy red. "What the hell is this?" he practically barked, slamming his hand flat against the kitchen island. The sound was so loud my mom actually dropped her wooden spoon on the floor. "What is what?" I asked, keeping my voice small and trembling. "This 30-day escrow garbage. A mandatory paper check on site. Are you completely stupid?" he yelled, pointing a thick, greasy finger at the red signature. "I told you to give them my account. They cannot hold my money for a month." "I tried, Dad, I really did," I lied, looking down at my cheap shoes. "The payroll manager said it is a strict federal law for agricultural businesses to prevent money laundering. Because the account is in your name, they have to verify it with the National Banking Registry. She said there was absolutely no way around it. They are holding the electronic transfer, and they are handing me a physical paper check on the 15th of next month." He stared at me, his eyes narrowed into these angry little slits. He was trying to figure out if I was lying. I held my breath. I felt like I was standing on a trapdoor. "Fine," he finally spat out, tossing the paper back at me. It fluttered onto the floor next to my mom's wooden spoon. "You bring that physical paper check straight home to me on the 15th. You do not endorse it, you do not cash it at a grocery store, you hand it to me. And if it is 1 penny short, you are packing your bags." He grabbed his beer and stormed down the hallway to the living room. A second later, the television blasted at top volume. I exhaled so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I bent down, picked up the forged document, and picked up my mom's wooden spoon. I walked over to the stove and handed the spoon back to her. Sylvia looked at me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. She looked entirely broken. "You should not have fought him on it," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the boiling pasta water. "It just makes it so much worse for all of us." I looked at my mother. I looked at the $3 of grease-stained clothes she was wearing. And right then, a massive, terrifying realization slammed into me. I had 30 days until the 15th of next month. 30 days until my actual paycheck hit my secret internet bank account. 30 days until Marcus realized there was no paper check coming home to him. I could not just take my money and run. I could not leave Sylvia, Chloe, and Lily locked in this drawing room with him when the bomb finally went off. I looked at my mom, grabbed her trembling hand, and squeezed it hard. "We are not fighting him, Mom," I whispered. "We are leaving him." Honestly, the actual logistics of planning a secret, 4-person family evacuation, while working a full-time data entry job, and living with a human surveillance camera, are completely insane. I mean, I basically did not sleep for a month. Every single night, after Marcus passed out in his recliner in front of the television, I would crawl onto the floor of my bedroom with Chloe and Lily, and we would whisper until our throats were raw. My mom, Sylvia, was by far the hardest to convince. When you have been treated like an inanimate object for 20 years, you actually start to believe you do not have legs to walk away with. I had to pull her into the bathroom, turn the shower on full blast so Marcus would not hear us, and just hold her shaking hands. I told her about the internet bank account. I told her about the lie I told Marcus. I told her that on the 15th of the month, he was going to demand a paper check that did not exist, and if we were still in the house when he realized I played him, we would not survive the fallout. I mean, I literally begged her. I told her she was worth so much more than $3 and a life of expired black beans. Eventually, she just broke down sobbing into my shoulder and nodded her head. On the 8th day of the month, my plastic debit card arrived in a blank white envelope at the Agricultural Cooperative front reception desk. Brenda from Human Resources personally walked it over to my cubicle and dropped it on my keyboard without saying a single word. I slipped it into my shoe. I walked around with that card pressing into my heel all day, and it felt like a tiny, uncomfortable piece of actual freedom. During my lunch breaks, I used the company wireless internet to research places we could go. I obviously could not secure a long-term apartment lease with only 1 month of employment history and no security deposit. But I found a cheap, extended stay motel on the absolute farthest edge of the county, right off the interstate highway. It cost $350 a week. It had a tiny kitchenette, 2 double beds, and a deadbolt on the door that Marcus did not have the key to. Then, the 15th finally arrived. The day of the supposed paper check. The deadline. I checked my internet bank application on my cheap flip phone the second I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. The screen lit up in the dark bedroom. The direct deposit had cleared. $1,142.16. It was not a fortune. It was barely enough to survive, but it was entirely mine, and it was going to buy our way out of hell. The universe actually threw us a massive favor that morning. Marcus had received a telephone call the night before about a massive regional heavy machinery auction happening 3 towns over. He was obsessed with getting his hands on some rusted backhoe loaders. He told us he was leaving early and would not be back until at least 7 o'clock in the evening, which was exactly when he expected me to hand over the forged paper check. He left the house at 9 o'clock in the morning. I watched his massive liquidation truck back out of the driveway, turn the corner, and disappear. The second he was gone, the house exploded into absolute chaos. I called into the agricultural cooperative and told Brenda I was having a severe family emergency and needed to use my sick time. She just told me to stay safe and hung up. Then, the 4 of us started packing. We did not take suitcases because Marcus would notice if the matching luggage set was missing from the attic. We used black plastic garbage bags. We shoved in our clothes, our basic toiletries, and every single important piece of identification we could find. Birth certificates, social security cards, my mom's expired passport. Sylvia wanted to take her expensive aluminum baking pans, the ones she used to make those custom wedding cakes, but I had to gently pull them out of her hands. I told her we were not taking anything that tied us to that kitchen. By noon, my beat-up sedan was packed to the absolute ceiling with garbage bags. The 4 of us crammed into the car. Chloe had to sit on Lily's lap in the back seat, and my mom was clutching her worn-out purse in the passenger seat like it was a life preserver. I put the key in the ignition. I looked back at the house one last time. The front porch light was still burnt out. The paint was still peeling. It looked exactly the same as it had my entire life. But suddenly, it just looked small. It was not a terrifying fortress anymore. It was just an ugly, poorly maintained building. Jean-Paul Sartre was entirely right about the drawing room. The tragedy of no exit is not that the characters are trapped by a demon, it is that the door is actually unlocked the entire time, but they are too paralyzed by each other to turn the handle and walk out. We had spent 2 decades sitting in that stifling, 78-degree living room, letting Marcus act like the valet, letting him dictate our reality, because we were too terrified of the unknown to just open the door. I shifted the car into drive and pulled out of the driveway. We did not leave a note. So here I am. I am sitting on a lumpy mattress in a cheap extended stay motel room that smells vaguely like bleach and stale cigarette smoke. The television is playing some random game show on a low volume. Chloe and Lily are sharing a bag of generic potato chips, and my mom is actually sleeping peacefully for the first time in my entire life. She does not look tense. She just looks tired, but in a good, normal way. I know this is not a fairy tale ending. I have exactly $700 left to my name after paying for the first week at the motel, and I have to go back to typing fertilizer inventory numbers on Monday morning. Marcus is probably tearing that house apart right now, screaming at the walls, completely losing his mind because his property finally walked away. We have to figure out a permanent apartment, and lawyers, and restraining orders, and a million other exhausting things. But for tonight, the door is locked from the inside, and we hold the only key. I am absolutely exhausted, my hands are still shaking, and my life is a complete mess. But honestly, I have never felt so completely, unapologetically free.